if you make your livelihood off of agriculture, if you farm, and you have a family farm that's been around for years and you're trying to figure out how to transition it to the next generation without everybody getting mad at each other, you need to listen to this message. At Nabity Business Advisors, we are doing more and more work with families that have had farming operations that might be in their third or their fourth or fifth generation. And we get to a place where you have some family members that are farming, and you might have those that are going to inherit the land, they're going to inherit the farm corporation that don't farm at all. And you can end up having this big battle that can occur. Once mom and dad are gone, the game completely changes. Those that are farming get into battles with siblings that don't farm, and they look at the land values at $15,000 an acre, and they're saying, man, let's sell that section. I can make a couple $1 million. I don't want my money tied up in the farm anymore. And what's that do to the sibling that's farming? It's a big deal, and it's a big problem. So what we're going to talk about today is some of the fundamentals that I believe you need to follow in order to get to a place where things work out well for not only mom and dad, but for the next generation that wants to stay in the farming business while at the same time accommodating the siblings that don't. So the first thing that we need to do, and I'm going to bring out my little whiteboard, the first thing that we need to do is to study the family dynamic. What is the legacy plan that mom and dad had in place? Do they want this farm to stay in the family? Do they want to support the sibling that is farming? What's the family priority? The second thing is who needs to be provided for in this family operation? Is mom still alive? Does she need an income off the farm? When she passes away, do the siblings need their rent checks for land that they've inherited and it needs to be a deal that everybody likes and is comfortable with? What about the whole situation of, like I mentioned, you've got a family that farms and maybe 3 families that don't. And how do we look through the economic interests for everybody? A lot of times it's getting inside the head, but it's also getting inside the heart. Sometimes we run into situations where the siblings get along fine about it, but the in-laws, sister-in-law, brother-in-law look at this situation, they look at these land values and they say, wait a minute, we need to sell that thing and have that money. It's a big problem when you're wanting to transition the family farm from one generation to the next. One of the things that we do when we get involved is we like to interview everybody involved. And again, we're trying to figure out what's in their head, what's in their heart, what are the issues, and what means the most to them so we can begin to develop a theme on what is the right thing to do with the family farm. Now, we transition from there into the economics. And when we're looking at the economics, we're trying to establish what are the financial needs of everybody in the family. Like I mentioned, if mom is still alive, if there's siblings that are wanting rent checks off the land, we try to figure that out. But with that, if a sibling is going to stay and operate the farm, they need to do a doggone good job of running the business of the farm. If the siblings are going to stay engaged and allow the sibling to keep running and operating the farm, one of the things that we've got to do is make sure that it's running with operational efficiency. And the only way I know to do that is to develop financial modeling. And we've developed software systems and spreadsheets and that can help us get a good idea of how many acres are in corn and soybeans. We're going to look at what we think the expected yields might be. We look at market rents, what the rents are going to look like. We input that data into the software we use. And then you make some estimates on what you think the prices are going to be. And one of the things we've done is we've got a software system that'll let you put in a yield number, a price number, acre number, and we can play all sorts of different financial models so we can get an idea at the end of the day, after spending money on seed, chemicals, fertilizer, etc., what your gross profit is going to look like by the end of the year if you get that kind of a price. And we can float that around. Or if you change rents, that sort of a thing. So we build a model to get to the gross profit number, and then we look at operational expenses. And this is where it gets kind of tricky, because we've got to figure out what the payroll is, what the taxes are, what your cost of equipment and debt service might look like. One of the struggles with this is a lot of times the personal lifestyle of the person farming can increase their fixed overhead so much that if you go through a bad year of pricing, you might not have enough money to make it, and that means you got to borrow. If the siblings that are allowing the farming operation to continue see the farming family spending way too much on homes and toys and vacations and all sorts of things, they lose confidence in the person running and operating the farm. And that further motivates them to say, look, let's just sell my section or what have you. So it's really important that the person that's running the farm can do economic modeling, tie in what their fixed and operational expenses are going to look like to see what their profit is going to be from one year to the next. I believe that if they do that, they'll be able to get the confidence from the other siblings to continue to farm. If they see alcoholism, if they see sloppiness with the economics, if they see that spending is way out of control, if there's a lot of personal decisions that impact the operational expenses of the organization in a negative way, you're going to have problems. Siblings are going to lose trust. And so doing the modeling is like really, really key. That's the starting point, because the family that farms then, if they do it right, can build a plan and go to the family and say, look, this is my strategic plan for going forward. Can you go with me? Now, one of the big issues in all this is estate planning. Again, the first part is, what did mom and dad want to see happen with this farming operation? Do they want it to stay in the family? Do they want it to continue to the grandchildren? You know, it might be the fourth or fifth generation of the family farm, and they know the value of the land and the fact that you can't replace the land, and they wanted it to stay in the family. So getting to consensus on the estate plan is really, really important. And one of the big deals with estate planning is estate taxes. Now, today you have to have an estate over $30 million in order to be in the brackets where you're going to start paying estate tax. But in Nebraska, for example, there's a 1% estate tax, and federally you have a 40% estate tax on anything over $30 million. So estate planning is really, really key from a tax avoidance standpoint. So one of the big issues in all of this is liquidity. And if you have a big tax bill that needs to be paid, the idea of selling off land and losing it forever for the family is mind-blowing. And you don't want to do that. So one of the things that we like to talk about is looking at life insurance to pay the estate taxes. You can set up an irrevocable trust. You can gift money into the trust, have the trust buy the life insurance. At death, the life insurance can pay the taxes instead of having to sell off land. Another reason to look at life insurance is, what if you do have a sibling that you know is going to sell? Once mom and dad are gone, the deal changes, they want to get their money. You can have the farming family purchase life insurance on mom and dad so that when mom and dad are gone, the farming family gets money. They write a check to the sibling sells the land back to the farming family so that it stays in the family. If you anticipate a sibling that's going to sell land, life insurance is the smartest way to do it. But you need to work that out ahead of time. One of the problems is these discussions get kicked down the road, and sometimes a child will be afraid to say to mom and dad, look, I'm going to sell the land. But once mom and dad are gone, guess what they do? So it's important to have these conversations ahead of time. The next thing that's real important, mom and dad, get this figured out when you're 60, no later than age 65. If you wait till you're 70 or 75 to start working out these plans, your options are going to be very, very limited. The idea that maybe you might use life insurance to pay taxes or have a sibling bought out, the cost gets so prohibitive, you won't do it. So the window to really get ahead of this is 55 to 65. I can't stress that enough. You got to work on this early enough so that you have a lot of options that you can deal with. To wind this all up, when dealing with a farm family, it's really important that you have a third party get involved. There's too much history. There's too much emotion. You have children that all have different skill sets. They've got all different personalities. Maybe they don't get along, and maybe it's a personality clash. If you don't have a third party involved to help work hard to understand the dynamic of everything that's going on and then work to a common good, it'll be very tough. And it gets to be too tough that mom and dad put it off and put it off and put it off because it frustrates them too much. So having somebody to do personal consulting with everybody and mediation is really key. The next thing is economic analysis. Is this farm running efficiently? Are there ways to become more profitable? How do we survive years where prices are awful or inputs are high? What do we do when we have excesses? How do we structure our personal lifestyle so that it exudes confidence in everybody that's involved in the family farm? Economic analysis is key. Operational efficiency is key, like I just talked about. Having a plan for liquidity is really important. Whether it's estate taxes or whether one sibling is going to need to buy the land from another sibling when mom and dad are gone, planning ahead for that is really, really important. And lastly, start now. Don't wait, mom and dad. I know it's tough. But if you want to make sure that the children still love each other when this is all said and done, and you want them to have good Christmas time and good Thanksgiving time and cousins that love each other and like hanging out with each other, you got to get this buttoned down. And don't wait till you're 75 to do it. Like I said, 55 to 65 is the sweet spot. If you need some help with that, just give me a call.